My name is Mamie Allen, and I'm an instructor here at UMA. Today we'll be discussing the urinary system and how medical terms play a part in identifying structures within this system. As with the other body systems, the urinary system also has a list of essential word parts that are used to define structures within the urinary system. So here we have the structure in the first column and the related combining forms in the second column. Note, nephro or renal is referring to the kidneys. Pylo means renal pelvis. For urine, we have uro or urino. For ureters, we have uretero. Cysto identifies the urinary bladder. Urethro will identify the structure urethra. And then prostato is identifying the prostate. Upon completion of this chapter, you will be able to identify and describe the major functions and structures of the urinary system, as well as identify any medical specialists who treat disorders of the urinary system. Here we have the urinary system and how it functions to maintain the body's homeostasis. When you hear homeostasis, this is just the process through which the body maintains a constant internal environment. So if we were to break this word down, homeo means constant, stasis means control. Now, when we think of the function specifically, it will help maintain the proper balance of such things as our water, salts, and acids in the body. What happens here is it filters by the blood and it flows through the kidneys. Next, it filters the blood to remove any urea, any uric acid, as well as waste materials from our bloodstream. And it converts our waste products as well as excess fluids into urine, where it's excreted from the kidneys through the urinary bladder. Here we have the urinary system. This is also referred to as the urinary tract, and it consists of 2 kidneys, 2 ureters, 1 bladder, and 1 urethra. Note, the adrenal glands, which are part of the endocrine systems, they're located on top of each kidney. Notice there's a pair of kidneys. Now, looking at the illustration, the primary structures of the urinary system are shown here in the male. You'll see the kidneys. Now, it's also important to point out the prostate gland, which is part of the male reproductive system, and it surrounds the urethra. The kidneys, one of the major organs within the urinary system. It's constantly filtering the blood to remove waste products as well as excess water. Both of these are excreted as urine, which consists of 95% water and 5% urea, as well as other body waste. Our kidneys also help maintain the proper level of fluid, produce hormones that control our blood pressure, as well as make those erythrocytes, our red blood cells, and activate vitamin D to maintain healthy and strong bones. Now, the term renal means pertaining to the kidneys. If we were to break that term down, ren, the R-E-N, means kidney or kidneys, and then the AL, all, means pertaining to. Now, the 2 bean-shaped kidneys are located in the retroperitoneal space, with one on each side of our spinal column, right below the diaphragm, and at the lower edge of our rib cage. Note, retroperitoneal means behind the peritoneum, which is the membrane that lines our abdominal cavity. Now, to go a step further, the kidneys can also be divided into 2 sections or divisions. We have our renal cortex, which is our outer region, and this layer of tissue contains many units, and we call those units nephrons. Now, the term cortex means the outer portion of that organ. Then we have the next region, which is the renal medulla, and this is the inner region of our kidneys, and it contains most of the urine collecting tubules. If you ever hear tubules, that simply means a very small tube. Remember, it's here in the kidneys that urine is produced through the process of filtration, reabsorption, as well as secretion. Reabsorption is the return to the blood of some of the substances that were removed during the process of filtration. Now, taking a look at the illustration, notice each nephron contains a glomerulus, which is simply a cluster of capillaries, and they're surrounded by a membrane called the Bowman's capsule. And we also can note the renal tubule exists there as well. Now, blood will enter the kidneys through the renal artery and flow into the nephrons. After passing through the filtration system, that filtered blood, now containing protein and blood cells, will leave the kidneys and return to the bloodstream through our renal vein. Now, the remaining filtrate will flow into our renal tubules where the elements, including water, sugar, and some salts, are returned to the bloodstream via a capillary. At the end of this process, we have the remaining wastes that are continuously being converted or changed into urine. Remember, this transports to the renal pelvis and collects in preparation for entry into the ureters. If waste products are not efficiently removed from the bloodstream, our bodies cannot maintain the proper homeostasis with a stable balance of salts and other substances, which could lead to fatal conditions. Also, toward the bottom, we have our renal pelvis, and this is the funnel-shaped area that's inside of each kidney. It's surrounded by the renal cortex and the renal medulla. This is where that newly formed urine from the nephrons collect before it flows into the ureters. Speaking of the ureters are simply two narrow tubes. They're both about 10 to 12 inches long, and they transport urine from our kidneys to the bladder. You may hear the term peristalsis, and this is just a series of wave-like contractions that move the urine down the ureter to the bladder for exit. Remember, peristalsis is also part of the digestive process, as described in previous chapters. As the process continues, urine drains from the ureters into the bladder through our ureteral orifices in the wall of our urinary bladder. Orifice is a medical term that means opening. Next, we have the urethra, and this is the tube extending from the bladder to the exterior of our bodies. Here, note the spelling of ureter and urethra are very similar. So be sure that you're not confusing the term and you're double checking it both anatomically as well as alphabetically. Now, dealing with the urethra, we have two urinary sphincters, one located at either end of the urethra. Here, these muscular rings, which are the sphincter, controls the flow of urine from the bladder into the urethra and then out of that urethra through the urethra meatus. Remember, sphincter is just a ring-like muscle that closes a passageway. Then we have the urethral meatus. This is also known as the urinary meatus, and this is the external opening of the urethra. The term meatus means external opening of a canal. Now, looking at the male and female, they both have a urethra, but of course the structure would be a little different. Now, with the female urethra, it's approximately 1.5 inches long, and this urethral meatus is located between the clitoris as well as the opening of the vagina. In the female, the urethra transports only urine. However, in the male, there's some difference there. Approximately 8 inches long, and the urethral meatus is located at the tip of the penis. Here, the urethra transports both urine and semen. Now also, in close proximity, we have the prostate gland, and the prostate gland is actually a part of the male reproductive system, and this surrounds the urethra. So most disorders of the prostate affect the male's ability to urinate. Now here we're moving on to the excretion of urine, or how it exits the body. Urination is also known as voiding or micturition. This is the normal process of excreting urine. Now, as the bladder fills up with urine, pressure is then placed on the base of the urethra, resulting in the urge to urinate. Urination requires the coordinated contraction of the bladder muscles and then relaxation of the sphincters. This action forces the urine through the urethra and out through the urethral meatus. Keep in mind, as you've seen with other body systems, the relaxation and contraction really help structures move along the process. And the same is true here in the urinary system. We have the sphincters of the urinary system. As with other body systems, there are physicians who specialize in the treatment of disorders and diseases of that system. And the same is true here with our urinary system. We have a nephrologist, and a nephrologist is a physician who specializes in diagnosing and treating disorders as well as diseases of the kidneys. Note, the nephro means kidney and ologist means specialist, so one who specializes in the study of the kidneys. The next specialist we have would be a urologist, and a urologist is a physician who specializes in the diagnosing and treating diseases and disorders of our urinary system of females as well as the genitourinary system of males. The ur means urine and the ologist means specialist. Put those terms together, we have a urologist, study of the urinary system. This concludes our session here, but in our next lecture, we will tackle some of the pathological conditions that affect the urinary system. I wish all of you good luck.